I'd like to give a demo of the application we're going to be creating, because this always kind of helps when you have the end goal in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with our weight. Let's just say 180, and then we're going to have a height. You can put it in inches, or you can just go ahead and select in feet and then in inches. So let's do 5, or actually 6'1". All right, and then what we do next is to calculate this, and you can see some of the other numbers are automatically getting populated for us. So you can go ahead and calculate. That's going to give you your BMI. It's going to tell you you're healthy because you're falling within that range. So that's what there is to the calculator. This is what we're going to be creating. So we're going to go ahead and get into Visual Studio Code and start building the application. All right, so I've got a folder created. I'm going to go ahead and initialize this. So an npm init. And just click through these defaults here. And there we go. So we have our package JSON. I'm going to go ahead with our start. This is just going to be electron dot and a comma. And then we're going to have our bootstrap.js. And then I'm going to create a couple of files. So our HTML and the corresponding JS, we're going to have BMI Calculator.js. I'm just going to copy that, and we'll create the HTML. We can go ahead with our style as well. So style.css, and I am going to paste in some styling, and there's not much to it. So you can see here, just some styling on a table that we're going to have. And then we can go into our bootstrap, and I'm going to paste in some code there. That's going to be some boilerplate code again. So again, this is nothing you haven't really seen before. And I can go ahead and remove that just to make things simple. So I am referencing right here my BMI Calculator.html. And then I'm going to go into my package.json because I have this bootstrap.js. So I'm just going to change that right there. Okay, so at this point, I think we should be able to, we need to bring in our node modules. I'm going to go ahead and download our Electron locally. So in some of the previous applications, you may have seen that we didn't actually have that. In that case, I was able to get away with the global reference. But again, I think it's always best to put that into your local application. So I'm going to do an npm install Electron, and I'm going to do a save-dev and let that download. So we'll get our modules folder in this case. And we're just going to check and make sure everything's going to start up after that. Then we can move into actually creating some code for the application. Okay, so that is complete. I'm going to clear, and we can do an npm start and just check this. Okay, so good. And we're not getting any errors. There's no interface, of course, but this is what we would expect at this point. We're going to start inside of our HTML file, and we're going to create the layout of this. Then we're going to do another start of the application. Then we'll check, make sure the layout looks good. We'll switch over into the backend part and start creating from there. So let's go ahead with our basic HTML that we're going to have. So this is going to be a lang equals en. We've got our closing tag there. We'll have our head inside of here. We're going to have our meta char set, which is going to be equal to UTF-8. And we'll close this. We'll add a link that's going to go to our style sheet. So we'll do style sheet. The type is going to be text/CSS. And we'll have an href to the root of style.css. And we can close that out. Okay, so we'll have our body now. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and add the reference to our script. And that's going to go at the bottom. So script is just going to be the reference to our source file. And we actually want rc equals. And that's going to be BMI Calculator.js. Close that. There's our closing script tag. Okay, so we're just going to use some tables in this case. And we're going to create our first one here. And we're going to have a border equals 6. So some of this, once we get things going, is just going to be some code to help with the layout, not really functionality. And I'll just paste that in so that we're not chewing up too much time on something that's not really related. All right, so there's our color. We'll have a class reference to BMI table. Close this. And then we can go ahead now with our TR. We'll have TD. Actually, we want D. So this first one here, we're just going to create a space. So that's going to be a width of 20. We'll copy this. We'll have some actual content in this one, so we'll just do a weight. And then we're going to have an input box on this one here. So we're going to do an input type is going to equal text. The name is going to be weight. And then we're going to have size of 4. Okay, so below this, we're going to have our combo box. And then that will complete the top portion of this. So we are going to have some IDs on this that we can access it. We'll have weight combo here, like that. And we're going to do a name as well, the same thing. So weight combo, and our size is going to equal to 1. Okay, so inside of this select, we're going to have 2 options. So I'll just bring this down, do it like that. Okay, so the first option we're going to have is going to be pounds, and I'm just going to do selected here, and pounds. Then the next one, I'm going to change the spelling on that. We're going to have kilograms. And then just a little bit of code that's going to help with our convert that we're going to have. So some of the text that we're going to have. So just below this, we'll do another, let's see, a TD. We'll do an EM. And in here, I'll just say a font size of 1. And then we're going to have can, put a space here. So let's see, no blank space. And we're then going to use convert. We'll do a BR. Down here, we're going to have our pounds to kilograms. And that should handle that row. So this next row, which we're going to start now, this is going to be a blank TD. And under here, we can do height. And then we're going to do our column span. This is where we're going to have an input box for the height. Then we're going to have a selection that's going to be for our inches versus centimeters. We're going to have an onChange function to feet. Then there's going to be an option for inches and for centimeters. And then after that, I'll paste in the options for the other drop downs because we're kind of starting to follow a format. They're all going to have an onChange, or some of them will have an onChange inside of these option boxes. So what I'm going to do is go ahead with this one here under height, and then we can move forward, just paste in some of these others and go through them real quick or fairly quick to understand what exactly they're doing, because there's not going to be anything really advanced going on there. So here we're going to have an input type is going to be text. We'll give this a name as well. That's going to be height. Let's see, I want a quote. We're going to have a size equals 4, and an ID is going to be height as well. And now we're going to have our function. This is going to be an onChange, which is going to equal to change to feet. And then we're on this, actually inside of the same row, because this row is going to be quite big, we're going to have our inches to centimeters as well. This is going to be another select. So let's see down here, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So here we're going to have a select with an ID that is going to equal inch. We'll do CM selector. I'm going to copy this because we can use that also in name. And size is just going to be 1. Our onChange in this case, so we're going to give this another function. I'm going to capitalize these. It's not coming through in the hints, but I'm going to go ahead and capitalize them anyway. This is going to be a change to feet as well. And we can close that off. So now we have our options, and the first one here just going to be option selected inches. We'll have one more option, and in this case we're going to have CM and save. That completes the top portion of, or some of the top portion of our HTML that we're going to be building out. So what we're going to do next, we're going to get into the other drop downs. We're going to just basically paste some of that code in, because again, there's not too much going on in there, but as we get out of those drop downs, we're going to move into some other areas that we are going to kind of walk through what exactly is going on with that, and just kind of follow as that's manually done. We're going to go ahead and finish off our HTML here, and that's going to be finishing this first table. So I'm going to remove this part here and paste in some other drop downs, and you can see I'm finishing our table closing down here and the row closing as well. So that is still there. And then if I scroll up, we can see what we have here. Save that. And actually at this point, we should be able to run this and just see what this is starting to look like. So here we are. Okay, so this can be cleaned up a little bit, but what I am going to do is go ahead and build the bottom section of this where we actually do the calculations. So we can go ahead and stop that and continue on with the next table. So this table here, we're going to have a border of 0, and I'll go ahead and put in the closing tag. We'll have our TRs, then a TD, so this is going to be a width of 150. And what we're doing on this one here, this is just going to be our calculate button. So this is what we actually call the calculate BMI function. And in here, I'm going to do an align center. All right, so this, we're going to have an input for our button. So the name of this is just going to be button. We'll have an ID that equals calculate. And then on click, we can do a call to our function, which is going to be calculate BMI. So that's the function on the back end that we're going to call. So type is, of course, button. Value, we're just going to do calculate BMI. And then we'll reference a little bit of styling on this as well. So we'll do a margin top, which is going to be 6 pixels. And we can close that. Then we're going to have our results. So just put in a no blank space, and that's going to be results. And then our TD is closed right there. So the next thing we're going to do is actually we're going to do a table inside of here. And this right here is going to need a TD. So we are going to do it like this. This will be a border. We're going to have a cell padding of 4 also. And this is where we're going to put our body mass index. So we're going to have a TD, going to do an align right. And then in bold, we'll do body mass index. Then we'll just do a separation with the space here. All right, and then on our next row, what we're going to do is a box for our BMI value. So we'll do an input. It's going to be a max length of 5. And the name of this is going to be BMI value. And the ID is also going to be the same. Get back up here. We're going to have our size set to 5. And then type is text. And then we're going to have kilograms, meters. We'll use a superscript here. And small, 2. And let's see, I think everything closes, and it does. And then our table closes as well. Then we close our other table here. So what we're going to have is one final table inside of this, and that will complete it. And for this one here, I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the code that we're going to be using, because there's, again, we've seen how these are getting put together, And there's nothing new in this one. All right, so for that table, that's what we're going to have. And let's see, I'll just break that up, move this over a little bit. All right. So this is our final table, and we have our body description. So this is you're healthy or you're overweight, you're underweight, whatever we might be putting is what's going to come out on that part. So now we can start on the back end of this where the processing is going to occur. Let's go ahead and take another look though and see what the UI is looking like. Okay, so there is going to be a little bit of change that's going to need to be occurring or happening here to make everything line up. So just go ahead and stop that. So what I'm going to do is back in our HTML, just to quickly try and fix this, is under this table here, I am going to add a TRTD, which I believe is the missing thing here, and then do a table. We're going to have a border that's just going to be 0, and I can remove that. Save, and let's just give this a run real quick. Okay, so that looks much better. So we're going to go ahead and stop. We can start now on our JS file. And the first thing we're going to do is create our change feet function. So we're going to have change to feet. And I am going to create the first part of this, and we're going to come back in our next lesson and finish it off and move into creating our convert to inches and centimeters. So a little bit of comment about what we're going to be doing in this. We're going to change the height from inches, centimeters to feet and inches on entering the height into the text field. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is get our values for height. We're going to get our value for whatever was selected in the inch centimeter drop down as well. So we're going to create a variable. We're going to have height in CMS inches. Then we can get our element. So get element by ID. That element is going to be height, and we want a value. So the next variable, we're just going to call this one inch or CMS document.getElement, and inch CM selector is what we had for that one. And let's see, this should not be node value, but value. All right, and then we can start with our comparison. And inside the comparison, we're going to go ahead and do the calculations to do some conversions. So we're going to start with this, which is going to compare our inch or centimeters to inches. So we're just going to say that inches was selected first. So we're going to have real feet, and in here we're going to get our height in CMS inches, take that and divide it by 12. Then we're going to take or create another variable called feet. What we want to do is get the integer value, so we're just going to do a math floor on this, which will get us that value. Then we have real feet, and then we have our inches, so we're just getting the component parts of this. So we do another math floor, which gets us again the integer that we want. So because we're doing these calculations, and that is going to give us some decimals. So we'll have our feet in here times 12, and I should be able to close that. So let's see here, I'm missing one parenthesis, which should go there. Okay, so that is for inches. Now what we're going to do is assign these values back into the UI. So we're going to do our document, get element by ID, and we're going to do height in feet. So height in feet dot value equals feet. Then we're going to do our document, get element by ID. We're going to go back now with our height in inches. Dot value equals inches, and save. And we can just put our else here. So this is where we're going to pick up when we come back. So in this case, centimeters was selected. We want to do the conversions into feet and inches and assign those into our UI. We left off with our conversions here. We started with inches and did the conversion there. Now we're going to do something similar to that, except we need to change up our formula so we can do conversions from centimeters into our feet and inches. So we're going to create some more variables. We're going to redeclare our real feet in the scope of this else block, and we're going to have CMS inches. And in this case, we're going to do 0.393700. And that's going to be divided by 12. Then we're going to have, again, feet and inches. We're going to go after the same things we did before, which is going to be math floor. And that's going to take real feet. We can create another variable here for inches. That's going to be another math floor. And in there, we're going to have, need two parentheses, we're going to have real feet minus feet. Then outside of that, we're going to multiply by 12. Okay, so now we're just going to kind of follow the same pattern. I'll just paste this in here because we're going to assign back into our UI. Okay, so that completes that else in this whole function. So now we can get into our next function, which is going to be our convert to inches CMS. And I'll put a comment above this one because this time we're going to change the height from feet and inches to inches CMS, or centimeters, on entering the height in the combo box and save. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get the value for our inch centimeter selector. We're going to create a variable that can hold that. Then we're going to do a comparison. Is it inches or what is it? And we can do some conversions on that. So here we'll have inch or CMS, and there's going to be document, and we're going to get an element. And this element is our inch CM selector value. Okay, so we start with our comparison. It's going to be inch or CMS. Is it equal to inches? Now, from what we did earlier, there's some things here we can likely reuse. So where we declare our feet and our inches using floor, we're going to take that from what we did above and just paste that down here. Okay, so from above, we have our math floor here, and we're going to use that again, but this time instead of throwing our variables into it, we're going to be getting those values from the UI. So we're going to have a var feet, we're going to have math floor, and in here, we're going to go ahead and start referencing these elements. So get element by ID. The first element to get is going to be height in feet. And we want the value. Then we're going to have our inches, which again comes out of math floor, and document get element by ID. This element, let's see, we want our parenthesis like that, is going to be the height in inches, and then we need our dot value. There we go. Okay, so from this, what we're going to do is total inches, and this is going to be feet times 12, then plus the inches. So we're taking these inches and we're converting those into the complete amount of inches that we have. So feet is getting converted into inches, then we take the inches that we do have and we get our total. All right, so from there we're going to have a document.get element by ID, which is going to be for height, and we can take that and assign into it total inches. So that completes the first part of that conditional. Now we have the else that we want to handle. So we can do a little bit of copy and pasting. We can take this right here, because again, we're getting this out of the UI now. So we'll have our height in feet, we'll have our height in inches, and from there, we're going to do total CMS, and this formula is going to be similar starting off, but then we have to change it up a little bit to this particular conversion. So we're going to have a plus, which is going to be the inches, and let's see, outside of our parentheses, we can go ahead with 2.54, and then our document, let's see, we didn't do this right, get element by ID, put that into height, dot value is total CMS, and that will complete the else part of this. So our convert to inches is complete, as is our change to feet. So then going forward, we have our calculate BMI function, which is our biggest function that we have in here. So we can go ahead, create a function name for that. That's going to be called calculate BMI. All right, so the comments on this, I'm just going to say calculate BMI using the formula. So what we do is get the value from the text field. We use height from the text box because it is the final value. Okay, so from these comments, get the value from the text field. So if we go back and look at this, you can see the values. This is at the top. We have our weight here, and below that we have this text field which has the height, which is the one it's referring to as the final value. All right, so we can go ahead and proceed with this particular function. We're going to create a weight variable, and what we're going to do is get document by element for our weight. So we'll have a document get element by ID for a weight dot value, and if we'll do weight less than 0 or weight equals nothing. So in other words, nothing's happened yet. And if that's going to be the case, then we're just going to display an alert. So please enter your weight. And we're going to check our height as well to make sure that we also have something there. So we're going to create a variable for height. We're going to get it the same way. So we're going to get the height from the UI. It's going to be a document, get element by ID on height, and we have our value. And then what we can do now is create a conditional. We just want to check once again, make sure there's something in there. Our height equals nothing. So in this case, we're not displaying the alert. That should be taken care of. We should have values from weight. So we're just kind of under the assumption that we do. And here what we're doing, we're going to call our convert to inches to CMS. And from that, we're going to go ahead and create a variable for height here, or actually reassign it. This time we can go ahead and take height again. So depending if it was empty or not, and then we'll just assign it there. Okay, so the initial weight and the height should have some values at this point. What we're going to do is get our inches or CMS. We're going to create variables for those. We're going to get the inch or centimeter from our combo. Then we're going to get the weight also. So we'll create inch or CMS. That's going to get the element, the UI element. So it's going to be inch cm selector dot value. And we'll create another variable. So this one here, we're just going to call it kilo pounds. And we can go ahead and get element by ID as well. This one is going to be weight combo. So that drop down dot value. Okay, so there's a few conditionals we're going to proceed with. We're going to go ahead and stop here. When we come back, we need to start checking what are the values that we're pulling out from the UI. And it's going to create some conditionals. From there, we'll go ahead and do some calculations to get our correct height and then also our weight, depending on if we're inches or centimeters or kilograms or pounds. We're going to continue now on our work that we're doing here in the controller, and at this point we can start with our conversions on the height or the weight, depending on what the user has selected. So to do that, we're going to start with a conditional. This is going to be a conditional based on our inch or CMS. And for this, we're just going to say if it's equal to inches. We want to go ahead and do a conversion at this point. So we're going to have our height in CMS inches, or actually it's going to be height in CMS equals height times 2.54. So we're going to do that conversion there. We're going to have an else. So if we're not inches, we're just going to take the height, which is going to be going back into our variable. So we'll just take height. So now we've got a common variable to work with on height. Now we can go ahead with our kilo or pounds. So we're going to have kilo pounds. We'll start off with pounds. So if that's the case, we're going to do a conversion. This is going to be weight in kgs. And we're going to multiply the weight times 0.453592 for that conversion. We'll do an else. And for the else, we'll have our weight in kilograms is just going to equal weight. So now we're going to have another conditional, and in this one we're going to make sure that our values are greater than 0. If they are, we can go ahead and do the calculation for BMI so that we get a final BMI. So we are going to then check weight in kilograms greater than 0, and we're also going to check our height to make sure it's greater than 0. So if that is the case, we can go ahead with a final BMI calculation. So to do this calculation, we're going to take our weight in kilograms and divide it. So all of this will go in parentheses. We'll have height in CMS, and that is going to be divided by 100 times height in CMS divided by 100. So that should give us our BMI. Then we want to get the BMI value that's in the view, and we're going to assign this variable into it. So we'll have a document get element by ID. That's not what we want. And that is going to be BMI value dot value equals final BMI. And then we have our text. So I'm just going to create a variable here for var BMI text. This is where we figure out the ranges and display you're healthy or you're too thin or you're overweight. And those are going to go through conditionals as well. So we're going to do final BMI. And for this, we're just going to say if less than 18.5, we're going to assign our BMI text with you are too thin. Or actually, what we can do is underweight. And then we're going to have if final BMI, we'll just enclose this, is going to be greater than 18.5 and final BMI less than 25. So we'll get some different text in this case. So BMI text is going to equal you are healthy. And then we're going to have final BMI greater than 25. BMI text. And we'll say just equal you are overweight. Then we want our value in the UI for the stat to have this. So we're going to do get element by ID stat dot value equals this text and save. And that should close off that conditional there. And let's see, I think that is everything that we're going to need on the back end. Let's go ahead and start our application and see what we get so far. All right, so we're going to do, let's go back with our original 6.1. I think we have a weight of 160. And calculate. Okay, so there's some things we need to tie in. Actually, what we can do to see what kind of errors we're getting is go into our Bootstrap, and we can add in here the developer tools reference. So I'm going to add that down here. We have our main window. So we're just going to do main window, open dev tools, save that. Go ahead and stop, and let's restart this. All right, so it looks like we don't have any errors, but we're obviously not connected up. So we're going to have to do a little bit more manual debugging on that. So I'll just go ahead and stop the application. So we aren't getting any results, and there's nothing coming out of our dev tools. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. So one thing is that in our dropdown, we notice there's nothing happening there. So if I go back into our HTML file and we go to where our dropdowns are, we can take a look at what may be going on. So let's see, we were on our pounds and kilograms. And I can see here the option for pounds is not spelled correctly, and that's the one we're actually not seeing. So I'm going to put that or replace that and correct it so that now we should see that. And looking at our weight, we don't actually have an ID for weight. So I'm going to bring that in because we do reference that in our JS file. So let's just make sure the drop down is working now. All right, so there we are with our pounds, and if I go ahead and just put in a value here, calculate, so we're still not coming through there. So there's something now, I believe, that's going to be in the JS file. So what we're going to do, go ahead and stop everything, and we can go into our JS file and see if we can find a few issues there. So kind of starting at the top of this, there's a few things that I noticed. So right here we have our get the height right here, because that height should be updating when we change our height combos drop downs. It should be updating in that text box, which it is not. And right here we're missing a T, so that should help that problem out. And then going on down a little further, we have this right here, which is calculating our height. What we actually want to make sure is to get an integer. We're going to do a floor, so math.floor, and we're going to surround this over here, save that. And then there's one other thing. So we have our calculate BMI, we have our CMS. If I go into my HTML and look, you can see we're using CMs, so like centimeters. So back here, rather than changing all the ones over there, I'm just going to change it here. And we have another reference that we have to change down here, which is this, to make sure everything there is updated. All right, so now if we give our application a try, and you can see, so we've got our pounds. We're going to go ahead and try a few examples. So the first one is going to be 160. I'm going to change this to 61. This is actually the one we looked at earlier on. Now if I calculate, so that gives us the right answer. Our text is correct. Now we're going to do 254, just to make sure we're getting the boundaries. And you can see we're updating again. Calculate. So yes, you're overweight. That is the correct value there. And we're going to do now 150 and 71, so we can really test that other boundary. So calculate, and yes, you are underweight, and that is the correct value there. So everything now is functioning the way it should, and we've got a properly working BMI calculator. So we just need to plug in the values, and then you'll get your body mass index, and we also have our text that's going to correspond to sort of a more friendlier interpretation of what that means. I'd like to summarize what we covered in this module when we're creating our BMI Calculator app. So our app files followed pretty much what all the other projects were doing. We just modularized everything, made it really easy to find where things are. So our JS file and our HTML file, so the controller and the view, follow the same naming conventions. Now for the formula, we saw initially how this is calculated, just kind of if you're going to do it by hand, for example. So there's two ways to approach it. You have metric, you have US, you need to do some conversions, then you can run through your calculations. So we had a few different ranges that we dealt with. We had for mild thinness, and we would display text for that to the user based on if the values fell into the particular range. We had a range for normal, and we displayed also that the user's BMI was normal at that point. And we had another range to account for overweight, which we displayed information there. So those were the three ranges that we dealt with. Then on the back end, we split up our functionality into three main functions. The first one was to accommodate the height calculations if we're dealing with the text field. Then we had another area with the drop-down combo box. So we had to also contend with the user making changes there, and we calculate an overall height in that case also. And then finally was kind of the meat of the application, where we calculate the BMI now that the conversions from US to metric or metric to US were done, and give the user the final display of that value, and then also the corresponding text summary of what the BMI value means. So that is an overview of our BMI Calculator application.